This week, I want to do something a little different. I want to go through a quick presentation for you. And I want to talk about, have you given up? There are an awful lot of people that find this a difficult process, primarily because they don't usually have a lot of sales background and haven't dealt with a lot of rejection. And you will deal with rejection. The end result, if you stick to it, for those that have been successful, has been well worth it. But it isn't without its emotionally trying times. The process is simple, but emotionally it can get tough. So I want to talk about, have you given up? Go through a short presentation, and I hope that helps you to look at where you are. Normally you'll have some successes along the way that you might have forgotten that help with self-image and self-confidence, and that you'll continue on. If you don't quit, you are well on your way of not failing. So let's go through that presentation. Okay, so have you given up? That's a question. So are you tired, frustrated, wondering if this is worth it? Well, as I said earlier, you are not alone. But this was never meant to be easy. It is a process by which you're going to generate wealth, hopefully, and if it were too easy, your competitors would be many, and it would be tougher in that regard. But there are some surprises, and I think it's important to remember those. There are people who have done a deal, seller finance deal, in 9 days, from introduction to completion. I'm not telling you that's what's going to happen to you, but that has happened. I've got another mentee who did a deal where the seller didn't really care about money, did care about the employees, and said, look, you can take the money in the bank account, which was $770,000, and just pay me $110,000 over 7 years, which essentially is buying the business for free, paying you to take the business. And then most recently, within the last month, a deal that started out to be a bank deal. There were some reasons that it could be converted to a seller finance deal, and between the time the first LOI was signed and some of the negotiations and then the change in the last days to seller finance, that was less than 3 months. So while the process can be hard emotionally, there are some pretty good successes for a lot of people along the way. Every successful mentee hits a wall. I do not have a mentee that I can think of that didn't go through and was tested through this process. So the question is, will you push through or will you quit? I hope you are built with enough grit that you're going to push through. But most people quit too soon. And it is amazing when things are going and moving. You'll have some setbacks, but you're improving, and sometimes it's hard to lose sight of that. And they oftentimes quit right at the point that things would have been much better if they continued. But business acquisitions frequently do take longer than expected, but no one's going to ask you how long it took you most of the time. They're going to see what you did and accomplished. And remember, each no does bring you closer to a yes. I had a telemarketer that worked for me once. I asked him how he did it, and because most of it was no's. He said, yeah, every day I imagine myself on a river, and I got to get to the other side. The water is all flowing by, is all the no's, and stepping on the stones, those are the yeses. And I just sometimes make it across the river, sometimes I don't. Think of it that way. Remember your why. Why did you start this? Why is it important to you? Is that family? Is it something you want to achieve? Cars, homes, charities, whatever it is. Do you want to leave a job? Do you want to build wealth? Do you want to create a legacy? Think about all those things. Write your obituary. If your why isn't strong enough, your excuses will be. Write that down somewhere. Boy, is that ever true. And then develop some discipline along the way if you don't have it already. Motivation does fade, discipline sustains. There are times, for instance, in working out. If you get into working out every day, it becomes a habit. There are days you don't want to do it. But when you get to that point, remember, hey, I've got a streak going, or I'm tougher than the feeling that I want to quit, and use discipline to go forward. But winners show up even when they don't feel like it. And remember that. There are plenty of times that you won't feel like doing it. Say to yourself, I'm a professional. I'm going to keep going here. So an example, you may go through a dry spell, but then you will get a situation, a call with a seller that goes very well and turn your whole attitude around. So it's amazing how fast the chemistry in the brain can change. So the compound effect, every action does build momentum. Small efforts daily lead to big breakthroughs. Consistency is important. And most people don't just stay in the game long enough for the good things to happen. As a mentee who now has 54 locations said to me, Bruce, you got to hang around long enough for the good stuff to happen. Boy, is that ever true. Understand that fear is a signal. Everyone is afraid. That doesn't mean that you don't push forward. It's okay. Fear is something that we all feel, sometimes very justified. If you're on the top of a tall building and you're at the edge, that fear is justified. But oftentimes, too, fear is false expectations appearing real fear. And so just understand that. Most of the time, you can deal with fear. You can imagine in some cases what's the worst that can happen. If you can deal with that, then push forward. But fear does mean you're growing. The obstacle is in the way, and don't mistake discomfort for danger. Everything you want will be outside your comfort zone. So a closing challenge for you. Ask yourself again, have you given up? Or are you just getting started? And set a goal for yourself. I don't know what that goal is. You should come up with that goal. But send 10 emails, make 3 calls, revisit your why, write your obituary, write a letter, all those things. Taking some action every day and focusing, even if it's what's the one thing I'm going to do today, is tremendously valuable. And then you didn't come this far to come this far. You came this far to do a deal. Remember that. But remember what you've accomplished along the way. If you've built a board, if you've gotten professionals, if you're more comfortable talking to big hitters, certainly. And keep going. Keep going. Okay, so don't be this guy. Dejected, head hanging down. Understand, hey, each no gets me closer to a yes. I'm learning. I'm getting better. There's a reason that this is important to me, and I don't care how hard it is. And also remember that sometimes you're going to get lucky and deals are going to come together much more quickly. So don't be this guy, and don't be this guy as well, that has all the toner ink on his shirt from all the letters he sent, and some of those didn't connect. So keep pushing. If you do that, if you keep your why, if you keep daily action, if you surround yourself with good people, more often than not, some good things are going to happen. So I hope that helps. This presentation was designed to give you a perspective on why you should continue. Make sure you understand how to do that. Remember the steps. If you don't know that, certainly the boot camp that I put together and updated in 2025 is a good resource for that. But remember your why, remember action, remember discipline, remember these things that I've talked about, and keep pushing.